Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Transformation webinar hosted by Telecom Review. I believe I'm audible to everyone. If not, please raise your hand or just send a text. Today evening, we have an esteemed panel of senior executives from the industry, and I'll sort of go through with each of them in understanding how their journey for digital transformation has been. What is the sort of challenges they've faced, what technologies they've been using. And obviously, this term digital transformation has been, used over the last decade or so. But I think we'll try to understand in terms of how digital transformation as a concept has changed for different organizations. And we have different participants from the values ecosystem today. So it would be good to sort of hear your thoughts as well. Without further ado, gentlemen, if I could perhaps ask you a broader question, and then we'll go one by one. If you could introduce yourself as well, apart from answering this first question. So maybe let's start with the first question around the same thing that I was just mentioning, that digital transformation has been in existence for a while now. If you could highlight from your perspective how digital transformation as a journey has evolved, what it used to mean over the last 3-5 years, where we stand today, and what do you think, digital transformation means for us, over the next 4-5 years. I think that'll be a good way to sort of kick in. If I could perhaps request Kareem, yourself, to start, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So Kareem, the CCO of Do. Definitely the digital transformation journey was tough for our telco industry, starting from people. So we were telco people and getting inspired by all the companies who were born, or they were born digital, and then trying to get definitely a little bit of expertise and skills, and then trying to also work on the people side. So I think telcos in general, they had really a challenge to make sure that they can upskill their people. The second is the way of working. So the digital transformation, I think, teach us that the waterfall and the way we are working, the way how we collaborate between business, IT, and all the other stakeholders, partners. So it has to change, and then I think this was also a tough learning. Then the technology adoption and the tools we were using as a telco, they were not really adapted to the new world and this journey of the digital transformation. I would say it was a tough journey, but I think we are in a good shape. We have demonstrated that we are capable to empower the customer, and this is what does it mean, the digital transformation in my view, by putting an app in the hands of the customer, so customer can understand what he is buying, and then he can also get access to the lot of features and functionalities, and make sure that we empower and we change and we simplify the life of the customer in general. So I think in the future, we believe that we have a good foundation with all the tools and now the new way of working and the people and the technology. We believe that we have a good foundation as an industry to take the lead and move on.
Thank you, Kareem. Daniel, would you want to sort of go in next in terms of how you've seen this digital transformation journey evolving, and how do you see this panning out over the next 3-5 years?
Yes, thank you. So Daniel Masouf, I am at Nokia and I lead the sales and solutioning for Middle East and Africa. Pleased to be here with my colleagues and peers in the industry. So I think digital transformation, as we said, it's quite a broad term, and I think we've kind of dabbled in identifying what it means for different industries. But I think from our end, Nokia being more of an enabler towards our customer, I think it's time to slice and dice it and say what it means for individuals, individual organizations. And I think there are many factors and many drivers which have been pushing digital transformation. However, it's all changed now. In the last couple of years, and we really burnt out on talking about COVID, so maybe we don't talk about that, and we talk about how the geopolitical situation in the world has changed. So I think the biggest driver is unpredictability. And that unpredictability is coming from everywhere. So we need to be able to respond very quickly to this. Elements of supply chain is changing. Companies are under stress with supply chain. We have problems with energy. And for the first time, people are actually acting on sustainability and not just the last page on your annual report. So there's people investing time on what sustainability actually means. And that also has a big impact on how you need to drive those initiatives. So I think, again, coming back, Nokia as an enabler, we have seen transformation within our operations internally. We do managed services for many mobile networks operators across the world. We do remote operations. We're able to use algorithms to increase, enhance performance of networks. And we have done that through many years in the past. But I think now we're moving to the next stage. We're able to put some level of convergence of analytics, AI, automation, and use the network data to ultimately improve network performance, greater productivity for the people running the operations, and also ultimately providing best-in-class customer experience. Then there is another element, which is a big change, I think, in the next 3 to 5 years, is the whole industrial automation. And that's a big play where we have connectivity connectivity is important for everyone. It's for societies. But now, when we look at industry, there has been a lot of discussion about private wireless. And now with 5G coming in, there's a plethora of use cases that need to be developed for either the mobile network operators to go and slice their networks into these verticals. And that will be one of the fundamentals of driving transformation, because that's what's going to drive the use cases when you want to do any changes in the way you're operating or driving sustainable improvements in your, I guess, your overall automation. And then the next part is private wireless, which is also growing significantly into industries such as mining and so on. So for us as enablers, yes, we continue to support the mobile network operators to improve their operations and also impact the customer experience, but also look at the industry and see how we're going to evolve this industrial automation piece. And that will play a big part in what transformation will look like for us in the next 3 to 5 years. So that would be from my end.
Thank you, Daniel. I think it's important that telcos becoming enablers to the wider digital transformations across different sectors is going to be a key theme for the future. With that, Yahya, do you want to introduce yourself and talk about the overarching theme? Then we'll go to Dr. Abdul Hadi as well.
Thank you. So I am Yahya Safrawi. I am the Chief Digital Transformation Officer here in Morocco at INWI. And thank you for the opportunity to talk in this panel. So, well, first of all, I'm very much aligned with a lot of things that have been said so far in terms of what digital transformation means and the different shifts that we observe. Maybe if I take a lens or the Moroccan point of view, because this is the market where we operate. For me, the evolution or the shifts that I could observe so far is digital transformation, at least in our market, started by being first a business stake. It was something that companies were pushing as opposed to a demand coming from the customers, because we did realize that we had a lot of stake in pushing that digital transformation in terms of improving the customer experience, in terms of improving our cost structure, in terms of increasing our agility, etc., etc. However, there's been a shift from just being a business stake, a business project, into really the main mean for companies such as telcos, but other companies to really be able to adapt to an ever-changing environment. someone mentioned earlier that now customer behaviors have changed. They have changed dramatically with all the digital native companies offering state-of-the-art applications and so on. And right now, our customers are judging us compared to those digital native companies. So when we put a self-care out there, when we put an application, when we put a website, when we put a digital offer, they're going to systematically compare the level of journey that we offer them to what they've seen elsewhere, what they've seen with those digital native companies. So digital became a real way of adapting to this environment, but also it's almost a matter of survival today. We're not going to survive as an industry if we don't adapt to those new behaviors and those new requirements coming from our customers. So customer has been one driver for the digital transformation. Other drivers are also, let's say, technology. Technology has been changing very rapidly with the adoption of cloud, of data and analytics, and a lot of other technologies that we're not touching on right now. But basically, those technologies also require a lot of flexibility, a lot of agility in the way we approach them, from a human resource perspective, from a way of work, from capabilities, etc., etc. So this is what's been happening so far. In my point of view, for Telecom, what we can expect to see in the few coming years, I believe, are first, well, an ever-increasing requirement coming from the client. They're going to continue raising the bar in terms of what they expect from their telco operators. I do believe that, at least in some markets like ours in Morocco, we're gonna also see a strength hybrid model where digital also interlocks very strongly with our traditional business. So, well, we hear very often about the omni-channel experience where the clients can interact with us in different channels, and this is very true in markets where the physical network has been very strong traditionally, and I believe that digital is going to be very much interlocked in the coming years with the rest of the business. Yeah, those are the things that we can expect, and of course, technology is going to be still ever changing. So I do believe that a lot of technological shifts are still to be expected.
No, great, absolutely. Those are the right drivers. Yeah, and thanks for sharing that. We'll obviously get into more details in terms of what you've been doing at INWI. But before that, on the very first question, Dr. Abdulhadi, welcome. And if you could please introduce yourself and talk about the trends, mainly from a digital transformation perspective. What is changing, and how do you expect this to transform into over the next 3 to 5 years?
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here today on this interesting panels and really interesting discussion. My name is Abdelhadi Boulmel. I'm heading technology strategy in Etisalat UAE by EAND. It's a pleasure today to present part of our journey toward the digital transformation, and indeed, I would like to build maybe on what Yahya said eventually, which is definitely aligned with other colleagues as well. I would say that it's not anymore a digital transformation. It's a matter of transforming our experience indeed into a real digital experience. We used to have digital transformation journey, it started many years back, but actually the COVID-19 pandemic in particular proved that this is not anymore an option. Digital transformation becomes part of our life. The whole lifestyle changed after COVID-19, and we have to be able to accommodate the requirement and the need of this lifestyle change afterward. I think from perspective of digital transformation, I would say that EAND has been going into massive transformation. Not only even branding itself has a meaning. When you see now EAND, it's where Etisalat and is targeting to be. And this is exactly not only telecom operator, and this is actually one of our main business, and we're going to continue excelling this as well, but probably and growing definitely, but probably even how to be a digital enabler and digital provider and technology provider indeed. And that's really, part of our continuous efforts at MiCo to promote this sort of inclusive digital culture that brings the community where we operate closer to them. indeed, there are a number of challenges in this. I mean, we cannot ignore that. But the commitment here towards some sort of how to build innovation in these markets, how to build the capabilities that will enable this sort of transformation to the digital economy. And this is exactly our target eventually. So we're doing this transformation for a reason. And that reason is how to build our societies in a way that achieve this sort of benefits from societal and even economic perspective. So we would say that we continue this commitment, and definitely we are proven this in a number of events. I mean, colleagues who were part of our Expo 2020 event have seen as one of the most important events maybe on the earth at a certain point of time, how it's a lot with its partner, and even as a major partner to the Expo 2020 Dubai, could maybe take this to a completely new digital experience, unique digital experience, let me call it, in the region. So I think the digital transformation, as I said earlier, is not anymore an option. We have to look at it from multi-perspective. I think Yahya also touched the number of aspects about the customer experience itself, and how this omni-channels will enable this sort of experience of interaction, let me call it, with our customers, wherever they are. And this is exactly will continue to be one of our major focus. And this will be definitely supported by a very strategic partnership that we have been going through recently with many of the market players, not only from telco perspective, but even from hyperscaler perspective, from OTT perspective. That sort of partnership is the way that we have to probably take in order to go to the next step together. Maybe yes, we compete at some areas, but actually we collaborate at the other areas for the benefit of all of us. So this is just in brief to say that digital transformation becomes more and more reality, and we are committed to further contribute to this, to achieve this sort of our society transformation toward the digital economy.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing those views. And I believe this sets a good stage in terms of getting deeper into this topic. Obviously, digital transformation has meant multiple things for telecom operators, for the wider ecosystem over the last 2 decades. And I know 15 years back, when the iPhone got launched and there was this huge flux of data, it was more around, how do you have those 3-screen strategy? Now people are going to consume content on their mobile phones as well. Customer centricity was still key, but I think it's been taking different shapes and forms. And at least my own view is that, the next 5 years is going to redefine how we as telecom providers or the telecom sector look at customers, right? Is it going to be the individual customers, or the wider ecosystem, and how do we start looking at the customer landscape in itself, how that is expected to change? With that, Yahya, if I could perhaps come to you now, could you talk us through us, in terms of the journey, of digital transformation at INWI, perhaps some of the challenges that your organization has faced over the last few years, and how you've been able to overcome them?
Yeah, sure. So maybe just an element of context for INWI. So INWI has always been a strong believer in the power of digital, and as such, we've always tried to position ourselves as innovators in our market. So the journey towards, let's say, digitizing some of our customer experience, some of our customer journeys, especially everything related to self-care, started very early on, quite a few years ago, with of course our offering in terms of traditional web-based technologies and application, self-care application, and so on. We had the first, let's say, wave of acceleration when we introduced the first 100% digital telco. I believe almost 4 years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago now, win by INWI, which was let's say the first, at least in the region, the first 100% telco operator where the client can do everything with his app. And this has been quite a massive success, actually. We also were the first to introduce, first telco to introduce the mobile payments wallet. So as such, we tried to position ourselves as innovators in our region, and let's say that more recently, the way we've been approaching digital transformation is through a few, let's say priorities. We're conscious that we built a few competitive advantages, but we're also conscious that the potential of the digital transformation is still out there, and we still need to go for it. So right now we're focusing, let's say, on 3 or 4 dimensions, mainly around even further increasing the customer experience through our digital offering, transforming our digital channel into a real sales channel that can come and challenge the rest of the traditional channels, but also being able to digitize a lot of the internal, let's say, processes or journeys that we have within the company, as we realize that this is going to be a requirement for bringing really distinctive experience to our clients. We need to digitize ourselves if we are to offer a really outstanding experience for our clients. And finally, we are trying to push a certain number of initiatives that will allow us to fully leverage the power of data analytics and machine learning, etc. So those are some of the priorities that we are working on right now, and we are structuring ourselves to face those priorities. Of course, in trying to address this digital transformation, we faced quite a few challenges. Amongst those challenges, well, top of mind, I would say one of them is the ability to really balance a front-to-back transformation. It is very easy to build front-end applications that seem nice to the customer, but the reality is, if you want to have a successful transformation, you need to think about your entire architecture, and you need to push your back-end systems as well as your front-end while you're pushing your front-end systems. So that has been a challenge, and I think this is something where we've been successful, as we've seen it as a whole from day one. So we've attacked all aspects of the transformation from day one. Some other challenges that we also faced is if I link back to the 100% digital operator win by Inouï. So that one was very interesting, because when we launched this product offering, we realized that the requirements in terms of SLAs and in terms of intervention when you have a problem are very much different in the digital world. When you have a digital only product, the client doesn't understand that your service is not operational for even 5 minutes. So the high availability is a topic that has been introduced and dealt with, and this is very different from the situation where you would have your branches open between 8 and 5 or 8 and 6, and then the systems can run can be off during the rest of the time. No, the system cannot be off, and the availability needs to be very high. So that has been also a challenge in the beginning, and something that we needed to address very early on. Other challenges are, let's say, come from the operating model perspective or organization perspective. When you do digital, you're by definition very transversal in terms of the different businesses that you're touching on. You're offering your entire product offering on the digital channel, so you need to involve multiple aspects of your organization in working together to build that. And that also means that everyone needs to be aligned in terms of strategy and vision. So everyone needs to understand what we're trying to achieve in order to be aligned and be willing to cooperate. So that's also something that we had to work on very early on and very hard as well, because you do realize very quickly that within your organization, the understanding of what digital is and what we're trying to achieve can be very different from one person to the other, and then their motivation is going to be changing if they don't have the same understanding. And finally, the last challenge that I think everyone will be facing, or at least in our region, is talent, of course. Now, digital is really about attracting the right talent and keeping that talent. And it's not easy, to be honest. I think there's a global shortage in terms of talent, and we need to think about what is our offering in terms of career paths, in terms of value proposition, etc., to attract these talents. And this is maybe one of the toughest challenges that you face when you're really serious about your digital transformation.
Well, thank you. Appreciate those viewpoints. Karim, if I could perhaps switch to you now. How's the journey been for Do? What are the sort of challenges that you've faced in the digital transformation journey, and any insights around how you've been able to sort of overcome those?
Yeah, I'm going to build on what Yahya said. Definitely, for us was people first, people / cultures / work environment. I think this was the first challenge. By having a high ambition, we were definitely facing the how to implement the experimentation culture. So if you want to go through this digital journey, you have to change the way how you also you think. You need to change the mindset. And then here, I think the way how we overcome that is to make sure that we allow people and then our factory to release and experiment at a small scale in an MVP type of approach before you go and to the drop 2 and drop 3. And this is a massive shift in the telco industry, because this is not the way how we are used to operate. So the second challenge, I would say, the way of working with the digital transformation. You cannot anymore work in a waterfall mode where IT is sitting in one side and business is sitting in the other side. So here it's more sprint-based, stand-up meetings, and then it's more an agile way of working. And this, I think, was also one of the challenge to make sure that we have a clear understanding what needs to go through this new way of working and what needs to go in more waterfall and traditional way of releasing. The third challenge is the go-to-market plan. So I think you don't launch a digital proposition in the same way as you launch, I would say, a traditional or an old product. So it's definitely, when you go digital, you have to make sure that you are talking to the early adopters first before you go to the mass market. And this has a completely different techniques and different way how to cascade any new proposition to the market. Also the channel how to collect the feedback from the market in order to redesign your drop 2, and then also how you enhance the existing proposition you launch. So this is an ecosystem which is new to it was new to do, and it's new to any telco or MNO in our industry. Then I would say definitely the next one is the tools we are using. So you cannot design, build, and implement new digital proposition with the traditional tools. So you use a different type of tools, just a way of communication. Jira as an example, Slack, and so it's completely different type of tools you are using, and to adopt this, you need to make sure that also you get all the security requirements and all the I would say the security around all the tools and the information you push through this type of ecosystem. Then the last one is the regulation, which I think we are lucky in a market where there is a high ambition to drive a digital agenda. And I think this regulation or regulatory framework was also more proactive, and then making sure that they can also help and facilitate our transformation journey and making sure that we can accelerate. So I think those in my view, the challenges and also the way how do overcome that. And I think there is more to say, but I'm sure that my other colleagues will cover the other areas. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Kareem. I think the key thing I picked up there was, getting the feedback from the channel between multiple drops, right? And that to me is what really defines, an agile way of undergoing a digital transformation. So appreciate those views. Dr. Abdul Hadi, if I could perhaps come to you now, in terms of, what the journey has been for E&, broadly, and how, some of those challenges have been overcome.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when we talk about the journey here, the journey started a bit earlier, as I said before, with the convergence of telecom and IT world. I mean, the convergence was an important, major change in the whole industry. That convergence going all the way from transforming many of our workloads from traditional, vertical-based type of solutions to a cloud native now, which we call it basic infrastructure. That's massive type of transformation requirement, I would call it. Requires a complete change in whole culture, in the whole skill set, in the talents. I mean, that's really putting a pressure on everyone today. How even, to go for that sort of transformation, whether you should go alone or maybe with a partner that has been already involved in this for a while. So that sort of challenge with that convergence becomes, let us say, more and more demanding in terms of how you build the capabilities and the capacity of different telcos today, while they are building their digital, let us say, infrastructure and digital capabilities and digital experience to their customers. I think, as a matter of fact, one of the major drivers here is how we transform our operations as a whole to be, let us say, as automated and intelligent as possible. While we talk about this sort of, transformation of operations, then we speak about operating model and how this operating model can be again unified. We used to have an IT, background working on certain type of let us say, applications and requirements, while the telco used to have a little bit different type of requirement with computing type of intensive applications and so on. So while in the other side, maybe they are looking more into storage and they want to build the sort of large data center to manage these sort of databases and so on. I mean, that sort of merge definitely brings those tools together. And now we speak about different stacks in terms of cloud, for example, and how these stacks can be simplified and unified in a way that really help our operation to be more efficient, while at the same time reducing our total cost of ownership. So the transformation has a number of dimensions that we have to look at, not only from, let us say, efficiency perspective, but again from cost perspective, from whatever talent perspective. And definitely the human talents is the driver for all of this. So we have to keep this carefully in mind. While we talk about this sort of transformation, again, how to build this agile, but not necessarily, agility is a bit wide terminology, but really how to work to make it agile at a scale. So how we can achieve this agility at large scales, going all the way from traditional type of services all the way to the edge. And it's a lot. We had this plan to move closer to our customer and to enable these enterprises and number of entities to probably go to the next step in their digital journey by offering them 5G based edge boxes and edge solutions that are fully automated and orchestrated by our, let us say, state-of-art type of technologies. I think that sort of building customer experience, unique customer experience, will encompass all of these sort of technologies, capabilities, tools, visions that we are building today with, as I said earlier, a vision of simplification and convergence in order to achieve our target at the end. I think there are many dimensions we can tackle in that regard, but just I will leave it at this point. Probably we can have further discussion during our event.
Absolutely, and I think we will definitely get into more details. So thanks for sharing those views, Dr. Abdul Hadi. I do see some questions coming in, so just wanted to sort of let the participants know. Please continue to sort of send in your questions. We will go through the panel discussion for now, but we will have the last part of our session for Q&A, and we'll use all of the questions that are coming through. So we'll get to these questions for sure. Daniel, sorry, get back to you now. In terms of, and you could perhaps talk about, more from a journey of your own customers, or in terms of what challenges have you seen them facing, and how you've been sort of able to sort of help them overcome, just from a digital transformation perspective.
Yeah, look, like Dr. Abdul Hadi was saying, it's very unique, every journey, right? So we talk about driving operational synergies. So if you take a traditional CSP or a MNO a few years ago, you had a lot of manual operation happening in their service centers and their NOCs and so on. And we have moved that to a more autonomous or operational model with some tools and platforms that allow you to build and enable performance-related data outcomes that help you build that. So you can take, for example, orchestrating self-organized networks. We can use tools to make sure that the operational part of the network is running up to the mark. Now we're moving to the next step, which is, people talk about digital service provider, which is, how do we make that more cognitive? How do we make it more self-learning? How do we move to make sure that it's more than autonomous and more cognitive and building into an ecosystem area? So I think that's something that we've been working with operators across in Middle East and Africa, across the world as well, to enable that. Now, there is that element of it, but then there is another element of it, which is around, with technology kind of moving the way it is, there's a lot of challenges that come across on the basic level of connectivity, for example. It's not easy. Like, again, I refer to Dr. Abdul Hadi because he was talking about cloud and so on and so forth. Right now, there are many options of what you should be looking at. What technology are you using right now? Especially if you're going to enterprises. Are you going to build a private network? Are you going to use edge? Are you going to go into building a 5G standalone network? All these options are there. So for us, I guess as Nokia, the first really key area of focus is, what are the capabilities and operational environment that we want to build? Is it through the network? Is it cloud? Back again? Are we doing edge? And I think that's where the fundamental lies. The second part, of course, is about a little bit of the data availability as well. We spend a lot of time trying to talk about how we're going to use and improve the processes. For me, it's about the value chain. We often make this error, we all do, that we go and try to re-implement a process and forget how we reimagine the journey. And I think that's a very important part that we need to help deliver with our operators as well as towards the enterprise. There is a big revenue stream with enterprises. We're all evaluating them, and we know we have many discussions with Etisalat, others of what we're doing for enterprise and how do we get to that. Fundamentally, there is another element which is important. How do we work with partners and ecosystem? It is not Nokia that does everything, right? We need to work with many partners, and that is something that we need to get better at. Working with vendors is a necessary part of bringing it all together. And today, unfortunately, the landscape is quite broad and it's fragmented, and it's hard for us to kind of navigate through it, especially when I look at our customers. Who do they look at to driving that overall ecosystem? I think that's another challenge that we face, and we're trying to help, playing some sort of a consultant system integrator role in driving those things together, especially when it comes to enterprise customers, where we're building more than 600, 700 private wireless networks across the world. And there are fundamental people and process topic. Everyone has touched on it, but I just want to say one thing on people and processes. Fundamentally, the roles that exist in our organizations today are largely stale. So the first thing is about looking at redefining future roles. And that's not an easy task. Even if you rewrite a job description, it's not an easy task. So you've got to rewrite and look at what those future roles look like. You also need to do an in-depth analysis of what talent, what skill do you have in the organization to reshape it. It's not just about upskilling, it's reskilling, and also new hire and recruitment change the practice. I think we all need certain amount of digital warriors out there. I don't think we have enough of them in our organizations today. And maybe if I can switch to the enterprise piece, which is, as you said earlier, that MNO CSPs are an enabler for getting to the enterprise. And if you look here for the last, as long as I can remember, in the last 6-8 years, we've talked about 5G use cases, right? And it's there now. We can speak about private LTE, 5G standalone, network slicing. There are use cases out there for every vertical. And I think what we need to look at is how those use cases are going to come into play. I'm in Oulu right now in Finland, because we have an event where we've got all our customers coming in. And here we have what we design in Industry 4.0 concept factory of the future, which looks at how we can take 4G, 5G networks, work on several elements of IoT analytics, edge cloud, and build in use cases for autonomous robots and so on and so forth, where we look at digital twins, all of those things, and what kind of impact does it have on the customer ultimately. So I think from that element, when we look at how the transformation is happening towards industries, we are able to take 4G, 5G, some of the network elements, and translate them across to real use cases which can be felt when it comes to OpEx savings and how more sustainable long-term initiatives that will help our customer offer more and, of course, deliver better customer experience. So I think taking two angles here, one from the CSP standpoint, but also one from an industry standpoint, which is quite essential of how we see technology connectivity play an important role in the coming years as well. So back to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. And I think that industry lens is quite important, and we'll come to that in a little bit. Yeah. But Kareem, if I could perhaps specifically come to you now. There are obviously different approaches when one looks at digital transformation. The approach of reimagining the future and sort of embarking upon a greenfield digital transformation is obviously a bold move. And I know you've started that quite successfully. Could you talk to us about what were the factors or guiding posts that got you to sort of tread on this path, and how it has been sort of going for yourself?
Of course, the Greenfield was a bold decision from Do, and I think the rationale behind it is quite easy. So we can see that we are moving from Web 1 to Web 2 to now we are talking about Web 3. So 30 years ago, it was just a website. So 10 years ago, it was a website and the app and this digital environment. Now we are talking about metaverse and all the other technologies who can support this new trend of the Web 3. So we ask ourselves this question, is a legacy system or our IT ecosystem today is capable to support or drive us to this next phase, which is the Web 3? The answer, of course, after going through a full assessment, is no way. So then we took a decision to build a completely new house. So it's a new IT ecosystem from the BSS, OSS, and then also on the front end side. So we, of course, by taking this decision and then also by putting all the resources and then the investment around it. So it's also a journey which cannot be like a big bang, and in one go you will build a new house and you will start migrating all your customers into the new house in one go. So definitely it has to be in phased approach. And of course you cannot do it with the same people you have who are really busy with operations and then making sure that they can maintain the business. So we took the approach that we hired digital gurus from different corners of the world, and then making sure that they can support the existing team and making sure that they can redesign the future of the company. So the people side, the work environment again, the way of working has been upgraded to make sure that we can make it a smooth journey and successful journey. One other dimension was also the selection of our vendors. So when you are an MNO or telco running your business with established vendors, so it's not that I would say easy to go with the same partners, with the same vendors, and then change completely the status quo and then go to more disruptive space. So we took the decision to also onboard new vendors into this journey, and then of course raising the ambition and the expectation, and make sure that we can get better outcome than where we are today. So I think this was also a good learning from our side. When you bring new partners, new vendors, it's also coming with a different culture, with different way of working and different approaches, and then different tools. And then here, I would say it was a quite successful onboarding, and it's also in a good shape. So when it comes to also the vision, so definitely we need, and then you need to make sure, and this is one of the key learning, you need to make sure that your organization understand why you are doing that. So I think Yahya talk about it. So the vision is very important. So why we are doing that, and what's our KPIs and how we will measure our success. So and this is a long journey, and we cannot wait 5 years to measure the success of our Greenfield program. So it has to be short, mid, and the long-term KPIs, and it has to be milestones and making sure that we are taking the right path. So yeah, I think those are definitely the key learning, and we are still in the middle of the journey. But I would say it was really a bold decision by going that route and trying to build a new IT ecosystem.
Thank you, Kareem. And I think that's the right mindset, right? That we're always in the middle of the journey, right? Especially if we're talking about digital transformation, it's a never-ending concept. Dr. Abdul Hadi, if I could perhaps come to you now. Obviously, you started talking about how Etisalat has sort of transformed, not only from a branding perspective, but sort of carving out different entities. What's the vision from a digital transformation perspective? Is that going to sort of accelerate the growth of different entities? Could you talk a little bit about how digital transformation plays a growth lever for the different entities of EN going forward?
Thank you very much indeed. I think building on what we have said earlier, the journey for digital transformation exactly is to grow and to excel in a number of areas rather than just the connectivity. It does not necessarily mean that the connectivity will not have the same importance. I think the importance of connectivity is increasing, and actually the value of telcos today, that they have the edge data, they have the access to the edge, and that's really what the other are missing today. So our journey is we're just how to build on that sort of let's say capabilities and strength that we have, and maybe getting into that partnership with the other parties that are maybe more involved in the analytics part of it, and maybe the data related let's say industry. We call it that as we said earlier, the rebranding was guided by that vision of going beyond just the connectivity and beyond the telco normal business. That's really have different and multiple type of requirements, and one of them, maybe Kareem highlighted this with regards to the operational aspects and the whole BSS OSS modernization. It really is some sort of very important pillar to move forward in that direction. Again, with the customer-centric type of vision and the strategy, we have to keep in our mind how we can get our customers with this sort of omni-channel type of capabilities and solutions across all platforms, and to make sure that our services are delivered with a unique experience, and let me call it unique digital experience, we call it, to our customers. A number of platforms have been developed to the market, and probably this also will continue. And maybe I would say that one of the major difference here, going from the traditional let us say approach to the current maybe digital, let me call it, driven type of services and solutions, is how we can embed the automation, not only the automation in terms of processes, but even how to build the intelligence in our end-to-end type of operations and solutions being driven. And that's really a differentiator today with having this sort of AI embedded in a number of our let us say, activities, operations, technologies, and so on and so forth. Interestingly, I mean, when we come to this sort of, let us say, journey, you will have multiple dimensions need to be considered as well. I mean, one of the dimensions is the data, as we said earlier, and when we talk about the data, this is our oil. And then the question is, what sort of platforms you need to make sure that this data is managed well? What sort of privacy and security measures you have to consider while you are, let us say, building your digital economy. At the same time, you're not compromising your customer privacy and security. So I think this is a priority one for all of us. So there are a number of dimensions when we talk about this sort of journey has to be considered. It's not only the technical infrastructure development and maybe the digital solution offering to the market. And definitely, as we said earlier, we are going all the way from the traditional centralized based type of solutions to the edge solutions, where we are getting unique experience in terms of latency, in terms of, let us say, rates, and so on and so forth, isolation for security purpose, and so on to our customers. The question is, whether, there will be one solution fitting all. The answer is definitely not. We will need to consider whatever we are doing today with a vision that this should be further modernized to achieve whatever we are targeting. So keeping all of this in mind, I would say that, that journey is going across a number of telcos today and even a number of other as well players in this market, merging these sort of, connectivity excellence, I would call it, from all the wireless and fiber. If you look today to the UAE, we are the highest fiber penetration in the world. And we have, one of the most resilient 5G infrastructure in the world. And probably I would say we have the infrastructure, we have the major capabilities to reach to our customer, to deliver whatever solution to our customer. However, we need to start looking to our operation carefully, our operating model, and then build on it in order to make it more agile, as we said earlier, at scale. So the way we are even building our intelligence today across number of let us say layers of our solution development and even delivery is definitely a major driver to this sort of journey. So as I said earlier, starting with automating the processes, operations, so on, to build the sort of agility in terms of the delivery of whatever business and solutions the market needs, whether they are enterprises or even consumers.
Absolutely, concur, Dr. Abdul Hadi. Thank you for sharing that. Yahya, if I could perhaps come to you. INWI has obviously been, at the forefront when it comes to being a digital service provider. How do you transform from here, and how do you disrupt yourself to sort of, latch on, to the future state? If you could perhaps throw some light there.
Yeah. So yes, we had quite an interesting journey so far with especially with the fully digital service offering, and we got a lot of learnings out of there. And clearly, there's something that you said that's very important, which is we need to keep on disrupting ourselves if we want to be at the forefront. Well, like if we look forward, there's a lot of things that need to be that we need to keep doing, and others that we need to strengthen. Clearly, what we the main learning or the main advantage of doing such digital offerings is the level of personalization that we've been able to do. Right now, our clients are able to tailor make almost their combination of voice and data through the digital offering, and that's something that you cannot have in your more traditional channels. And clearly, keeping on pushing that level of personalization is something that we see as very key in the digital offering that we are bringing to our clients. I believe that if we are to continue being serious about this path, we need also to strengthen even further the customer research base that on which we act. We have adopted so far a lot of ways of work that help us integrate the feedback from the clients within the way we develop. I believe Karim spoke about agile way of work. We've adopted design thinking methodology as well to make sure that we are integrating the customer feedback. I think that the chance that we have with digital that we don't necessarily have with the other channels is the ability to test fast and change if we want, and this is something that we are able to do, to A/B test, to test new things and adapt. And this we need to keep on doing to perpetually strengthen and improve our journeys as well as our offering. There's another dimension that I believe is super important going forward, that you realize when you start doing digital seriously, which is, well, digital helps you, let's say, decrease the number, the volume of claims or of calls that you need to go through your client service. However, what you realize is that digital tends to attract the easy or the standard between the standard cases. And when a client comes to your client service, usually it's going to be much more complicated cases. So there, being able to have a state-of-the-art client service and a high level of quality is key in digital. Because if a client gets to the client service step, that means that he's not been able to do something by his own on the digital channels. And knowing that a lot of things can be done on the digital channels, that means that your level of service needs to be really high. So that's also a component that's very important and that you need to keep on working on when you're doing digital. If I go beyond just the 100% digital offering, I believe that even for the rest of the business, figuring out how digital truly interlocks and is intertwined with the rest of the business is also key. I mentioned earlier that the omnichannel and the capacity of, let's say, offering to the client the opportunity to start a journey online and finish it offline, etc., is going to be key, especially in markets like ours, where the client will sometimes value the proximity to the human proximity to the branch or to the agent. Finally, I believe that the last thing that's going to be key in really differentiating ourselves is going to be this way of work, this operating model. We need to make sure that our operating model keeps on being structured in such a manner that we can absorb all the changes that are coming our way. And their agility is really going to be key. We cannot just be very let's say fixed about the way we do things. Agility and flexibility are very important if we are to adapt to the different challenges and changes coming our way.
Absolutely great. Thank you, Yahya. Daniel, we started talking about 5G becoming an enabler of digital transformation for other sectors. Could you perhaps elaborate this theme a little bit more, right, in terms of how you're helping your clients, the CSPs, but then the broader sectors, cross-sector community as well, right? And the promise of 5G, how is that expected to sort of change, the other sectors as well?
Yeah, look, I think I covered it a bit when I was speaking about the industry verticals and what we're doing. I think 5G has several benefits coming in from a mobile network operator standpoint. One specific area that we've been exploring now with many is fixed wireless access, and that enables large communities to be connected, but also we're looking at how we use the network slicing function to drive more specific requirements into these verticals. We've already started discussions with many of the operators around the region. We're doing trials right now for network slicing. And I think from an industry standpoint, from a use case standpoint, that's one of the bigger ones, FWA, and how we can probably use network slicing as well. I think the second part is also looking at what we need to do for enterprises. We were talking about many different, of course, technology being the first step, or connectivity, sorry, being the first step, and then we need to figure out what we're going to do with the rest. But I think we are at the first step in many of these instances. But 5G standalone is a question mark for many in what we're going to be able to do. Private wireless, there are many variables to private wireless. how we're able to deploy that connectivity area. When it comes to use cases, I think there's a plethora of use cases. You know, from an industry standpoint, we have use cases specific for verticals when it comes to the energy sector, or related to the mining sector. The use cases are quite a few that we're exploring as well. So I think the basics are to get the right connectivity model in from our standpoint, bringing sure that the choices are there, and then also explore opportunities like private wireless and network slicing and see how it goes forward. Given we're short of time, I'll stick to that. I think we're right on the dot. So
we are indeed, and then thank you all for sharing your views. Perhaps if I could launch a quick poll for our audience. Yeah, it should be launched now, and a request for the audience to sort of answer the couple of questions that you have there. And in the meanwhile, if I could perhaps start taking the Q&A, the questions that are coming through from the audience. So the first one being, any one of you used a defined digital transformation framework? Kareem, could we start with you on this one?
Definitely, without framework, you don't know where you are and where you want to go. There is a clear framework with all the dimensions, people, technology, and I would say partnership and timeline. So I think we can summarize it in this way, or we can summarize it scope, time, and cost. So definitely there is a framework.
Yeah, thank you. And Yahya, Dr. Abdul Hadi, perhaps in that order.
Yes.
Would you agree? You similar?
I can take well, I can try to answer it. In our case, the framework that we've been following probably revolves around 4 dimensions. If I have to summarize it, the first one is really getting your strategy, your strategy getting everyone aligned on your strategy and defining first what is your strategy, what are you trying to achieve. And the notion of value assurance needs to be there. You need to make sure that within your strategy, you know what you're doing and why you're doing it for. What are you trying to achieve through this digital transformation? That's number one. And you also need to make sure that this strategy is properly aligned across the different stakeholders within your organization. So that's the first dimension that we've been looking at. The second dimension is, for me, the operating model. You need to think about what is the right operating model to deliver such a digital transformation. And when you're talking about operating model, you have a few questions around what is the right organization. What is the right way of work? We talked about agile. Is it just agile? Is it a combination of agile and other ways of work? What is the right strategy for talent? I mentioned earlier that talent is absolutely critical and will continue to be absolutely critical. So how do you attract and retain that talent? And finally, still within this operating model space, what is the right strategy for partnering? I don't think that any of us here is doing his digital transformation all by himself. You need partners to achieve such a transformation. So your strategy around your partners is absolutely critical. So that was the second dimension. For me, the third dimension is really how do you think about your technology and data backbone? So you need to think about what are the requirements in terms of data architecture, data processing, etc., but also what are the requirements in terms of backend technologies? How do you modernize your backend systems to support such a transformation? Because without your backend systems, you're not going to make it. And finally, the last dimension is how do you drive change within the organization? So change management is absolutely critical. And there's a few initiatives that can be taken there. And this dimension is absolutely critical as well. So for me, those 4 dimensions need to operate simultaneously if you are to really succeed in digital transformation.
Thank you, Yahya. And I was sort of just getting the results from the poll. So the first question was, digital transformation is no longer a goal, but a prerequisite. And as expected, it's a resounding agree. although there is someone in the audience who disagrees with that one. The second one was, how do you evaluate a successful digital transformation journey? And we have 71% of the audience saying it's a combination of digitized services, new technologies, and satisfied customers. About 20% saying that transition to cloud and deployment of latest technologies. And then obviously, there are some in the audience who believe it's the availability of digital services. The third question was, what is next? And again, it's kind of a split vote here. Half of the audience feel it's a continuity to digitization efforts. And, again, the other half believes it's a new concept that goes beyond digital. So thanks again for answering on this poll. I think it's quite insightful indeed. Any other questions from the audience? Otherwise, perhaps I'll ask a quick fire last question to all of you. And then, we can sort of, end a great panel today. Over to you, Kareem, first. What's the secret sauce of digital transformations? We all know that a lot of digital transformations don't get the result that they desire for. A lot of them fail along the way. What do you believe is the secret sauce towards having a successful digital transformation?
I think the recipe here is I will park the companies who were, I would say, born digital, digital native companies, but for me the risk appetite is definitely one of the success factor. And I think the culture of the company as well. So I think those are the two, for me, the key elements of the winners or the key success factors.
Okay, absolutely. Yahya, your views on this one?
Well, I think that we touched on a lot of concepts and framework on how to drive digital transformation. Maybe only one thing to add is digital needs to be the top management's priority, or it's not going to happen. It cannot be just a concept that we use for our communication. If the top management is not involved on a daily basis to drive that digital transformation, it's very tough to make such big shifts, especially in pre-established, pre-existing organizations. So for me, top management involvement is absolutely critical.
Thank you. Dr. Abdul Hadi, your views, please.
Yeah, I think it's all about the culture transformation before we talk about the technology transformation indeed and the processes. So everybody should believe in it. I mean, if that sort of vision is cascaded down to the technician on the ground, I do believe that this will be a successful journey, definitely. So we need to believe in what we are doing. I need to believe in this transformation journey that really will have difference impact on every one of us. I mean, those technicians will have more knowledge, will be exposed to new type of capabilities and skills that really will let them even get to another necessary area. So all the way from those on the ground to the top management, I think that sort of vision should be completely aligned and complied with. And at the same time, when we're doing this sort of culture transformation, we need to make sure that our technologies, our tools, are correctly implemented. If we do not have the right tools, so we're going to have the wrong answer or the wrong outcome. So we need to set our infrastructure properly. We need to set our KPIs correctly. So we need to know exactly what we are doing, what we are going to achieve, and what really we are looking for. If we are missing the proper KPIs, then probably we might not be getting the right outcomes. In addition, while we are building the technology and the culture and setting our KPIs and targets clearly, so we need to make sure that our processes enable this. So our operation is ready to do this. Our, let us say, as I said earlier, the workflow itself is going well in order to achieve this sort of transformation and achieve the targets that are preset for.
Thank you. Very insightful indeed. I think we sort of started talking about how digital transformation has changed over the years, from looking at it in terms of more internal to sort of taking it more customer centric and bringing the right tools, capabilities, etc. Looking at what the customer landscape is for MNOs today and how that is shifting. culture being a predominant theme that we're hearing in terms of what the secret sauce is, right? I mean, you could have innovation at scale, you could have technology at speed, but without the culture that is geared towards having an agile digital transformation organization working towards it, it has been a road full of challenges. Obviously, we've sort of heard about different technology components, how talent has become a shortage, and sort of really trying to sort of solve that complex maze of getting the right technology, getting in the right ecosystem partners to walk through a continuous journey. And I think that has been sort of the key theme from this panel. So many thanks once again to our esteemed panelists, and it has been once again an insightful session with all of you. Hope you have a good rest of the evening today, and look forward to sort of having such discussions in the future. Thank you again.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you very much.
You have-
Pleasure.